Tammy Salisbury. I'm Executive Director of the Art Center here. We're a 501c3 charity organization, and you're in our exhibition space upstairs here. We also have art classes. We have 4 different terms where we have a variety of 50 to 60 different art classes that we offer each term. We also have an art mark in the lobby that you probably walked through, and our ceramic studio is downstairs. And then many of you know we produce the Art in Apples Festival, which provides 65% of our operating budget to function as an organization here at Pine Creek Center for the Arts. So we want to thank the artists today that are going to be speaking, and for the beautiful work that we have on display. So Emma and Ellie will lead the discussion.
So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Ellie Ingram. I'm the Director of Art Education and Exhibitions here at Pine Creek. And we are really excited about this show for our first January season. I think we've got some really dynamic pieces, and all the pieces really seem to work well together. So what we're going to do today is we have a series of questions that we are going to ask the artists. And if you could wait till the end to ask questions, so try and remember as they're talking, if you get any questions, to ask them at the end. But I'm going to introduce Emma down here. This is Emma's first exhibition with us, so I'll let her introduce herself, and she's going to start off the questions. Okay?
So my name's Emma BOONSTRA. I'm the programming coordinator for art education and for exhibitions. I've kind of taken on the role that Megan, I don't know if any of you know Megan Stone, but Megan Stone, she left and she went to do her own artwork paint. So I took on exhibitions from there, and Ellie and me have been working with these wonderful artists today that you will get to meet. And then I'll pass on for BLAIR.
I'm Blair Rickman. I'm from Holland, Michigan, on the other side of the state. Been doing sculptures since the early 90s, and I'm very happy to be here.
I'm Tonya Henderson. I'm from Gaines, Michigan, which is up near Lansing, and I do acrylic paintings. There on the right are my work. I also do what's called personal energy portraits too. So.
My name is SOUMYA. I live in Rochester Hills, and I'm born and brought up in India. I do acrylic paintings and photography that's my passion, and I'm also an engineer that I do as a full-time job. And I do art because it gives me happiness and content, and most of my artworks, I dedicate it to the NGOs and the foundations that help poverty and, retinoblastoma cancer patients. So that's my aim in life, to help the need.
So here at Pine Creek, we get a lot of different people coming from all different backgrounds to make art here in our building, show work and sell their work. So the first thing that I'm curious about, and I'm sure our audience is curious, is about what got you started in the arts?
As a child, I was always interested in arts. When I was in school, I would do art as hobby. And as I grew up, I never took any classes formally, but I just did portraits for my friends on their birthdays and did art in my house. So that's how my art passion started. But after moving to States, and when I was doing my master's, I thought I should take it to next level and make it a bigger venture. So in 2013, I started my own e-commerce website, and I also started doing acrylic paintings and started running shows in a local Lake Orion and all the local Detroit shows. That's how I started my art journey in a bigger way than I did in the past. So yeah, it's wonderful now.
I'm not sure how I actually got started. I could have potentially been born with a crayon in my hand. I'm not sure, but I've been doing art my whole life. I would sit in my room as a child and draw pictures for hours. I actually had my first illustration job when I was about 17 years old. I did some illustrations for a coloring book. And then when I was, I think I might have even been younger than that, I took some classes at the Flint Institute of Art in Flint, and they were in painting. And then when I was in my early 20s, I moved out to Colorado, and I attended the Colorado Institute of Art, and I got a degree in visual communications. So my first job was with WJRT TV in Flint, and I did on-air graphics for them. And from there, I did marketing, advertising for a number of different firms, and I lived in Virginia, and at that point when I started having children, I kind of switched out of the advertising and marketing and went into the fine art completely. I started my own business. I put my artwork on cards and shirts and marketed them around the eastern coast for some time. And then when I moved up here, with my kids being little, I didn't want them to have to be in a daycare or be with a babysitter. So I started an after-school art program. The art program didn't exist at all in Linden school districts when I started the program. And that way my kids could come and, you know, in the beginning they participated, and then they were assistants, and then they grew weary of it. And so I then extended into what I was teaching. I've been teaching acrylic painting workshops around the state. And then just in the last few years, probably the last 3 years, I've moved into, because I had this whole other side of my life in the metaphysics. And so now I've combined those two things where I do readings for people that are actual paintings. That's the personal energy portraits. So that's what I do now, is I travel around and do those. So.
I've always been interested in art. My sister was an artist growing up, and my grandmother used to get her classes at the Muskegon Art Center. Didn't do much with art until I married an artist, and then for one of our anniversaries, she got me a class at Oxbow Art School in copper. And so I really enjoyed that, but as the instructor's son-in-law was a blacksmith who was going to come and do a hands-on demonstration. And once I sort of got my hands on that, I figured I felt that was where I wanted to go. I really liked that medium much better than copper. So I kept taking more and more classes in blacksmithing and in sculpturing. Kept taking them at Oxbow, and as time went on, I went on from just being a student to a tech, and then from a tech I started help teaching the classes, and then finally started help teaching and doing teaching at Oxbow. So kind of through marriage and family, I got interested in art.
Would you all be able to talk about the work that you submitted? Obviously, it's all very different and dynamic, different mediums. If you could talk about why you made it and what was your process.
I kind of found this material by accident. I tend to spend a lot of time going to junkyards and digging through piles. And usually what draws me is I find one piece that is interesting, whether it's texture, shape, capability, what I think I can do to it when I get it home, and that's kind of the linchpin. And then what I do is I bring them home, and everything is built around that piece. So I throw it in, and I get a big driveway, and I start piles of like and kind materials, and keep moving them and messing them and drinking coffee and staring at them, and then eventually I get to a point where I start welding them up. They can suddenly become 2D to 3D. Now these pieces, I was digging in a huge, probably 12-foot pile of scrap steel and found a whole stack of this. This is called industrial drop-off. These are sheets of steel that they plasma cut or water jet cut patterns out of. And this is the scrap that's left, but these are flat. So I started pulling them out and just digging through this pile and started to find that they were moving as I was pulling them out. And as my pile got very large and interesting, it just kind of came to me that these have potential. So I dug out every single one and took them home. So what I found was I set up a station to start bending and working with them, and found that when I got through taking them from flat, bringing them up to 3D, I was going through an emotional process. So each one reflects what I was thinking or going through at the time. That's where the names come from. So as soon as I get through the piece, I draw a picture on the chalkboard and I give it a name. And then that's how I kept track. So these were just kind of inspired by accident, but I've had a lot of fun manipulating them. So.
Well, these pieces that are here on the wall were sort of a transition time in my life. I had been doing a lot of contemporary realism, and I was in kind of a lull. in every aspect of my life. And I decided that I was just going to put paint on the canvas and not care one bit about what it was that I was doing. So I really started out with an emotion or a feeling. So this one here in the front, that's called fading funk. So if anybody's ever been in a depressed state or a real low sadness, you know that feeling that when you know that you're coming up out of that, that's where that piece came from. Now the one on the other end, it's called Peaceful Chaos. And so that one is about this place where there's all the chaos around you, and you're seeing everywhere around you. Everybody's life has it. And yet, in that day, there was this place where I felt at peace with it all. So that's why it's like one side is expressing one thing and the other side is expressing it another way. It's like I was aware of the chaos that was around me, and yet I found that place of peace. So that's what that one's about. And the titles will kind of give that away a little bit about what those pieces are about. And a lot of my work is that way. The titles give it away. What you're thinking and feeling is definitely what has been coming out. And so from that point forward, I really don't go into a piece anymore with any kind of an idea. I go into it with a feeling and let the energy express itself.
You know, all my pieces are on that wall. All of my paintings are fluid acrylics. It's mostly abstract and contemporary. I love them because every time you try to create, even though the same piece of art, you would always end up with a new piece. And also it depends on the person viewing the art. It gives perception. So I like the fact that it's so creative and it leaves up to the audience imagination. So that's what attracts me towards abstracts and fluid acrylics. So when I did these are all like an year-old painting, like I did recently in the last 2 years mostly. So the tri-panel one is the lithosphere. So I like science and space and stuff. So when I started doing these, the theme of my paintings went on with the lithosphere and then ice and fire. And the one on the right side of the window is the space, I would say. It's kind of space. And I think the rain is right behind the wall. So it's a mix of blue and green and stuff. It's all abstract. So yeah, so when I go with the paint and canvas, I don't go with the defined image or what I want to paint. I just start doing it and it all forms into my own imagination. That's the best part of art. And in the end, you were so content to see the final work. So yeah, I also started this venture when I had my daughter. I had a maternity leave. So yeah, I would say she's my inspiration.
I love hearing about what inspires people to make art. I think it makes it that much better to look at it. So great answers. So I would love to know what has been your biggest achievement so far in your art careers?
I would say, I'm still a budding artist. I started as a big venture in 2013. So biggest achievement, I would say, being a part of the show, sitting with the greatest artist here, and I think that's the best achievement for me right now. I did participate in local art shows, but I think this is my first ever participation in a great studio like this. I would definitely think it will take me far.
That's an interesting question, but I don't think that I could say one thing. There's been a lot of little things along the way. When I was younger, doing that coloring book was the greatest thing that happened. And then when I went to, started working at Channel 12, that was the greatest thing that happened. And then when I had my first solo show, that was the greatest thing that had happened. Right. And really what it is, it's just a series of these nice little events that have led me to where I'm at now. And I guess if I look at it, the big picture of it, I would say probably The moment of bringing all aspects of my life into one and moving forward in a more authentic way has been probably the biggest achievement, I think, for anybody. So.
That is a very hard question. It's like, I think the greatest achievement is meeting other artists and finding out what it really gets them excited and their processes, and it enhances my life. It just gives me enthusiasm. After something like this, I'll go home and just maybe go off in a new direction, or just get enthused and make some more pieces, or it's just, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And the other great achievement is I'm going to survive my first panel discussion.
What I think is always a good question, kind of to end with, would be, what would be your advice for new artists or people who are new into coming into art? What would you say are some really important things to go forth or to take on with you?
I would say to believe in yourself. That's the number one thing. You have to believe in yourself. You can't rely on somebody else to do it for you.
And to do it.
And to do
And
it.
to do it. Just go out and just try it. It may not be the medium that you like in the beginning, but like me, you find something from it. But I waited, I remember being in high school, and I waited and waited and waited, and then nothing happened until I was married. Think about the trouble I could have gotten into if I'd done it sooner. So.
I would say everyone is born with an art, and you just have to try, and when you try, you rediscover yourself, and maybe you will do wonders. So never hesitate, that I would not be able to do it this or that. Just start with a blank sheet of paper and colors and go start doing it, and then you'll figure out what you want. So,
It's a journey.
it's a journey.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest things. Number one, believe in yourself, but the second thing is it's a journey. So if there's not this one moment that's gonna come and make you something, it's every day and every step that you take. It's about the journey. It's not about the destination.
For me, even the smallest piece of that, the art that I did over the weekend was a big achievement, because there is some sort of happiness that you get. You look at it, it's beautiful, and the contentment. So it's not to prove it to anybody, or for your own self. That's what art makes it all.
So I'm hoping that you guys have been thinking of really great questions to ask. So I'm going to open it up to the audience. I knew you were going to have a question.
I don't know where you go and find piles and piles of leftover metal.
It's getting harder with liability nowadays, but I've got, and I don't share with everybody, but I've got like 3 different places that still will let us come in and dig through.
Like a junkyard type
They're,
of
yeah, they
place?
usually like steel recyclers.
Oh, see.
I don't want to go where they take junk cars, because that's
Okay, but that's
too
the only thing
refined.
I've seen is
Yeah,
junk
no,
cars.
there's actual places that'll recycle steel, like industry will take their scrap
I
too.
heard you say that. I
So,
wouldn't know what to do with it, but and rust
want
and things are appealing.
oh,
You
yeah.
said there were piles that you could gather.
Welcome to my world.
Whoa, yeah.
There's a scrap metal place in Pontiac where my husband goes, actually, and
Really?
he's not an artist, but he goes and pokes around
Oh, I'm
and
seeing,
finds interesting pieces, and I think it's off Baldwin, but it says scrap metal, and they have all different kinds of metal. I don't know if you're familiar with
Educate
it.
us.
well, I could do road trips. I've driven farther for a lot less, I'll tell you.
Yes, who did the artwork in the back wall?
This is Dorothy Anderson Groves. She is from Traverse City. She wasn't able to make it down tonight, but her information is up at her.
Do you really believe everybody has art in them? Because I think you guys do. I don't think I do. So I mean, it's funny to hear you say I think everybody has art, because I don't feel that. I feel very more mechanical, more square. And when you go artsy, I don't know. Do you really believe that? I mean, do you think everybody?
Yeah, I say that because when I started, I wasn't a great artist either. When I started drawing, the portraits didn't look like the person that I was trying to draw. So, but I didn't give up, right? Every time I improved, I made it better. So I think, you have to pursue if you really are interested. But then again, it's all interest, right? One might be interested to pursue in a field one or versus the other one. So I would say everyone is born with art. It's up to the person to pursue it or not. So I would say every time you do it, you get better.
But interesting, because his kind of art would be, I would think, would so much more draw to me than the colors and the acrylics and all that stuff, because that's art. I mean, I know yours is art, but I also look at it like, oh, that's really cool. That's not, that's just like putting stuff together, whereas they, sorry, but they have to do that stuff. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I started as a
I mean, I love that
toolmaker
stuff.
and working with steel. And my job was to get it within, my pieces had to be within a half a thousandth of an inch. So
What
I,
did you start with?
as a toolmaker,
Ah,
a
yeah.
machinist toolmaker. So for me, going from that precision and like you, square, triangle, and whole bit, to that was a huge leap. But it's there. I personally also believe that everybody has art in them in some form.
How did this selection of artists get put together? Was that through Paint Creek or was that?
Megan Stone curated it. We adopted this, Ellie and myself. I believe that she went through, and we had, how did you signed up for it, didn't you?
That's what
I got
I'm
a
wondering
call.
for the artists in the audience. They sent in images to Paint Creek. Paint Creek looks at the artist images and puts shows together, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so none of you.
And we're
reached
always
out.
looking for
Yeah.
interesting things
Yes.
to put in the gallery, so.
I'm gonna add that BLAIR gets a double whammy here, because if you've got the right lighting, not only do you get the sculpture, but you get the shadows.
shadows,
That's right.
yeah.
Then those wonderful shadows.
So how do you deal with frustration in everyday life that gets in the way? I mean, how do you switch it off? Do you leave yourself a certain amount of time every week, or, you got children, and how do you prioritize? Or is it something you just have to do?
Both.
Yeah.
I just have to do it, but I also have to prioritize. I paint every day.
So can you paint for an hour and stop, or do you need a big block of time?
I can paint for an hour.
Okay.
I didn't used to be able to do
It's
that.
hard, yeah.
I used to have to be able to just have a big block of time. I
Right.
mean, sometimes I'd go for 2 days painting.
Right.
But I found a process along the way where I could stop in the middle and know that, because the biggest thing was you get in a emotional
Right.
flow going, and when you stop and come back the next day, you're not in the same place emotionally, ever. So it's hard to pick up where you left off if you're doing emotional work. So I found that I could break my paintings down into stages where I had a underpainting that didn't rely anything at all on the final bit of painting. So I found places where I could stop, and then as like I said, it's a journey. So after I figured that out, now I can sit down and paint for an hour and still pick up again the next day. But that's got a lot to do with not having the frustrations and the outward chaos in my life, and I don't have that in my life anymore. So it's a lot easier to pace myself and work through a week on one piece.
Do you all have designated places in your home, studios?
I do my art in my basement right now, so I dedicate that space. So it's kind of not distracting for me because, my child is playing upstairs or something, I dedicate that space to art. And also depending on the type of art, I would dedicate the time, because if I'm doing fluid acrylics, that has to be done at one time. I cannot stop and go next day because it all blends together, kind of creates a mosaic patterns. But if I'm doing floral or something, that's more defined, I can do part of it and continue tomorrow. So I kind of decide based upon what I'm doing right that time. And it's all emotions again, Not every day I might go and spend an hour. One day I might spend 3 hours, but the other day I might not even paint. So, so that's how I do.
Yeah, my studio is connected to the side of a full shop on one side. My wife has the studio on the other side. We kind of meet in the middle, and I always have 10, 15 projects going at once. So I've always done everything in my life is clutter. You know, so for me, yeah. So for me, moving from piece to piece and on is no problem.
How do you know when your work is done?
Oh, that's a great question.
Drives me mad. How do you know when you just want to keep tweaking it or stop?
I know because if I keep tweaking it and it suddenly ends up what it did 2 days ago or 2 days earlier, then I know I've gone too far. Sometimes you just get the feeling. It's just, I can't add anything more. It tends to look cluttered or whatever. It kind of lets you know, because some pieces, if you know they've gone too far, you see that they've gone too far. You spend too much time with them because you've gone beyond their purity and you've kind of decorated them. So.
I struggled with that in the beginning a lot and ruined a lot of pieces. But I found that if I'm not certain, then I take a break and I walk away from it. And it doesn't matter what I'm painting, if it's contemporary realism or if it's the abstract or whatever, I will shift it on the easel. I keep turning it. And I will look at it because sometimes you'll know something isn't just right, but you're not sure what it is. So if I turn it on the easel and walk away and look at it again a few minutes later, you see the composition differently. You see the contrast differently and the layout of the coloring differently. So you'll find that thing that needs to be corrected. But if you can turn it in all four directions and it looks balanced and integrated through the whole piece, no matter which way you're turning it, no matter what you're painting, doesn't matter if it's realism, watercolor, doesn't matter. If you can turn it in every direction and it's still balanced and integrated, then you're done. You're done. But if you turn it and you see something in it that's like, oh, that doesn't, yeah, I can see it this way, that I need another yellow spot down in this area somewhere because it's not fully integrated. So you put it back the way it's supposed to be and you work on that. And truthfully, one stroke at a time at that point. One stroke. You put that one stroke on and you reevaluate, because one stroke, when you're at that critical place, if you stop and analyze it after that one stroke, you'll decide then at that point, is it done? If it's not done. If you're still confused, then I leave it there for a few days or a few weeks or a few months, depending on what it takes, until finally you're looking at it and you're like, that's so done, or that is so not right, you know, it'll hit you. But I don't go past that anymore. I don't go past into a bad piece anymore, because I've found that practice that works.
I kind of spend time on the painting until I get satisfied to, maybe 98%. And then I'm still a little bit uncertain. Then I take my husband's opinion. He's my first audience. Sometimes it works wonders. Sometimes, his way of looking at the painting is totally opposite of my way of looking at painting. So, yeah, it worked sometimes, it didn't work sometimes. So, but he's my first audience, and then my daughter. So once both of them says wow factor, then I kind of close to 98%. I might, like Tonya said, I might do a little bit touch here and there. Subconsciously at that point you would know what the painting should look like or what you are expecting out of it. So that time you would just give highlights or something, then it's done. Otherwise, I have scrapped many paintings as well, because trying to make it better, I have ruined it. So.
Well, you're all abstract artists, and it's very impressive work, all of it is. And so my question has to do with content and how you might find meaning in an individual piece, or is the work entirely about form?
No, there's meaning. I usually start with something that the feeling or the emotion that I'm starting my day off with. What I do a lot of studying. I'm always studying something. And so there'll be something that I've been studying that means something to me. So when I start to paint, I'm painting that. I'm painting that meaning. So I'm starting with that first.
Mine is form first. I'm bending and I'm looking. I do a lot with negative space. I don't do much with color because I'm colorblind. So I find that I let the natural patinas of the steel. The piece right there around the corner, where is it? Back there is that's one of the few color pieces I do. That started out with a hot oil patina, and then it moved into adding a Melka magnesia coating on top. That's where I get the color from. But I work with negative space, so for me, I'm looking in between the steel more than I'm actually looking at the steel. So then, like on this series, the emotions and stuff, I looked at those second.
I start off mostly with how I feel for that day. So if it's a day it's raining outside and I have time that I want to paint, I'll just go with a rain theme, and I don't have like a predetermined image on what I'm painting, but I just start off with some colors that kind of depicts the rain and you know what the surroundings that I'm seeing at that point, and it all comes into form. So that's how I paint. Most of my abstracts are done that way. So I didn't know whether that would turn the space when I started that. I just mixed a few colors, and then like I said, I'm fascinated with science and space and all that. So when I read, kind of had that some blur image of how space looks with little bit dark, with a little bit brown, and so that's the way I start off with painting stuff. Yeah. But I do like floral and other things. Those are pretty much, I know what I want to paint, and I kind of decide on the colors that time.
When did you guys realize what's your signature style?
Great question.
Still working on it?
It took years.
Do you feel yourself going into one particular medium and doing, building on that? How do you paint?
I had 3 or 4 pieces at a gallery, and I had someone tell me that as an artist, if I wanted to be professional, then I needed to narrow down my medium. I worked in everything. When I went to college, we had to get very good at many things: woodcuts, ink drawings, painting, drawing, everything. And I did. I worked at it, and I got as good as I could get. And so when I moved into doing my art, one idea in my mind would only work with watercolor, and one idea would only work with. But over the years, I discovered that I always go back to the acrylics. I still do watercolors, and I use that more of for like illustration rather than the fine art. So I haven't quit any of the other things I do. I just don't do them as much, and I focused on the acrylic paintings when she said that to me. And I would say that it was good and it wasn't good. Because it was good because it's true that if you're in this environment, then it's good to focus on one thing because you get better and better and better at that one thing. On the other hand, all that experience of doing all the different mediums has helped me tremendously do the portraits that I do now. Because I never know what I'm going to be painting or drawing that day. I never know. It just comes through me. And all of that experience has made it so that I am capable of doing that. I'm capable of doing whatever comes out. So for me, so it's like I narrowed it down. Yes, I narrowed it down to the acrylic paintings. But when all of this came together in the last few years, where I'm more focused on what it is that makes me good, feel good about myself, and that I'm contributing and helping people, all of it has mattered.
Steel's going to always be my medium. But I think I want to start I'm introducing the stone bases. And I'm going to introduce, I'd like to introduce some glass, but not have that be the focus. So the main part will be the steel. I love that medium. I love what it does to me, it's like working with clay. If I can add the right amount of heat and the right amount of pressure, I can get it as soft and as pliable as clay. So, but, and steel by itself is great, but I also like to see what else I can do to expand it.
I've always started with acrylic, and I've stayed with acrylic because it's so versatile. You can mix it with different medium and make it the way you want to look at. You can make it look like a watercolor as well to blend more textured ones. So that's the main reason why I love acrylics. And apart from acrylic painting, I do photography.
Can you just, I don't know what energy portraits are. What do you mean by that?
Well, we are energy. We're not just our body. We are energetic beings. And perhaps you've heard the word aura. I look at people and I can see that aura. And if I focus on you and your energy and your aura, then I can paint that. I paint you. And it's amazing what comes out. Everyone's is different. What I get is different. But it's
You mean you
mediumship.
Like it's like that, and that's describe somebody? I mean like this?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I do have a brochure in the back, and there's some examples of it in there. And so some of them look very abstract, and some of them are more realistic. It just depends on the person and what's coming up for them. But it's sort of like a mediumship. Like if you were to go to a psychic and you got a tarot card reading, it'd be similar to that in that the things that come through while I'm painting are totally about you and your life. And so basically when somebody sits down with me, what I tell them is that I'm just going to connect with you and your energy and paint whatever comes through. Every single color, shape, line, anything that transpires or comes up on the canvas has a meaning for you. So then when I get done with the painting, I explain what everything is and what it means to you. Now when somebody else looks at it, they might not see exactly what I'm telling you about you, but you always know. You will always know what that painting means because it's you and your life.
So you're doing the paintings while you're with the person?
Correct.
You're doing them on the spot, like as
Yes.
you're communicating with
Yes.
the person?
No, I don't communicate with them.
Or,
That's the most interesting part about it, is that I have them sit with me and I ask them to just close their eyes and focus on their breathing so that they are not feeding me anything.
Okay.
I want it to be just interpretive. And they're pretty accurate and pretty interesting and very, very varied from one person to another what they are. Some of them are abstract and some of them are very realistic.
That is very bizarre.
It is very bizarre. And it was really, really weird how it all came about. I had a friend tell me, you know what, you should just get out there. And I've done readings and healing work for people. That was another life. and then this life was the art. And I had a friend come along and say, you know, I'm going to this show. And she had already combined the two of them. She does spirit animal totem portraits. And she said, just come to this show with me and set up in the corner of my space and be a reader. I'm like, all right. So I went and I saw what she was doing, and I did a few readings. First time out in public doing it. I was just doing it for my friends and relatives and whatnot. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool. And I enjoyed it, and I felt like I was helping people. So I went to a show on my own, and I thought, well, I'll just put up a wall behind me and put a few paintings on there and sit out in front and just do readings. And someone came along and asked me if I could paint their something. I don't know what it was. I can't remember now if it was their aura or whatever. And I said, I have no idea. I have no idea. Why don't you sit down? We'll give it a try. I said, I got a piece of paper and a pencil here. Let's just... And they did. They sat down, and it was the most amazing experience either one of us had had. I mean, it was just incredible. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. So I went home and I put on Facebook that I needed a couple dozen guinea pigs to show up at my studio. I said, if you'll show up my studio, I'll give you a free piece of art. So they came and sat with me, and every single one got more interesting and involved, and it was just amazing to me. So I thought, okay, well, how can I incorporate this? Because I was just doing colored pencils on paper. But I'm an acrylic painter. I should be painting, right? And they're more permanent, and they're, you know, there's more substance to a painting than there is a drawing. So I figured it out. I figured out how I could paint on the spot at these shows, and I've been doing it for a couple of years now and having really the most success I've ever had in my life. It's just blown me away.
Very good. So I think this was a really interesting discussion. So our time is up. I don't want to wear them out too much. So what we'll do now is we have some great pieces of food back there donated from some of our local restaurants in Rochester. So feel free to partake in that and walk around, come